Salve, anyways, this is RSS 008, real street stories, or real sports stories, I guess, in this case, because this is basically when I met the guy known as Clark Gillies. He was number 9, I think, on the, as you can see, I think he put his number on the puck. But he was number 9, he was on the New York Islanders, he won 4 Stanley Cups with them. So this is when I met him. It was basically, if I remember, I think, I looked it up, I think the date was April 24th, 1994, because they were playing the Rangers in the playoffs, and at the same time there was a comic sports show going on. So basically the Islanders had a record of like 31 and 35. So it didn't look like they were going to make the playoffs. They struggled most of the season. Then they go on an 8-game unbeaten streak, including 4 overtime games. They lose the last game of the season, and they finish 36-36, and they had 84 points. So they just barely make the playoffs. You know what I mean? They're just barely in the playoffs. The year before, they should have went to the Cup final, but we all know they rigged Montreal to win the Cup. It should have been the Kings versus the Islanders, and they even called like the Brad Dog. Anyways, we won't go through that. So, anyways, just to tell you, I used to do comic shows with X-Ray Comics, and then there was this other guy who sometimes would be on the table with him, like Alan. So this is a Nassau Coliseum sports card comic show. So this is supposed to be a big show. So it's pretty cool. Like, I got to drive in, like, my cousin had like a pickup truck with bad alignment that would hook to the left. So I actually got to drive it. I got to drive it down into the Coliseum and set up and stuff. And I think I got to drive it out, so that was like really cool in it anyway. So basically, there were some wrestlers there too. Missy Hyatt, she was known as a valet. This guy Sunny Beach, I didn't know. And then the very well-known guy Cactus Jack, Mankind, Mick Foley. I'll admit, I saw him when I was setting up, and I was like standing right by him, and he's like a hunchback. He was like the hunchback of Notre Dame, but he's like 6'6". He's just like a massive guy. I was too afraid to speak to him, so I did talk to one guy at the show who told me some stories about him, and Missy Hyatt, and you know, he was one of the other dealers. So I did about 151 to 200 comic shows. I started in about 1990, and I went through probably 95. So somewhere about 151 to 200 shows. So I met a lot of people. Clark Gillies is probably one of the coolest guys I ever met. Growing up, my friend down the block, Mike McCormick, was a big Clark Gillies fan. So, you know what I mean? I was more of like a Mike Bossy fan. So anyways, my cousin gives me 2 pucks to go get signed to Clark Gillies. So I go, I wait online. And like at the time, I probably had like social anxiety, so I was really nervous and stuff. So, you know what I mean? I was really shy. It was really difficult for me to talk. I used to have my hat down to my nose, but then I started playing handball. So by now I was already playing handball, so I probably had my hat back. So, you know, Clark Gillies, I meet him. He's trying to be a class act. He's trying to talk to me. He's talking to me. He's talking to me. And I'm like so nervous I can't say anything. Like nothing can come out. So I probably seem rude. So I'm like, could you just please just sign these? You know what I mean? It's just so funny. So he's like, oh, all right. And so he just signs the puck. So when I first got the puck, it just said Clark Gillies. It just said Clark Gillies. So Clark Gillies, Clark Gillies. Then I saw other people getting the puck signed, and I saw that he had the number 9 there, and he put their name. So I thought that looked really cool. So I go, and I think I go with 1 puck or 2 pucks, but whatever. I go, and I get him to do like the thing with the Steve and everything, and the number 9, and I said, yeah, look, you know, I was really nervous, I was afraid to talk, but you know, I have a dealer stick on me. So you know what I mean, I have the sticker that says dealer. So I'm talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, you know, like, so the game's going on there. I'm like, you know, the only guy playing out there is Mick Vukota, and he's a goon. And, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but Clark Gillies is one of the toughest hockey players ever played. He's actually bigger than Mick Vukota. He's like 6'3". Vukota's like 6'2". I'd meet Mick Vukota at either Nassau Coliseum comic show as a dealer, because I have 2 signed cards from him, because I was going to bring one to my girlfriend at the time, Denise, because she liked him too. He was a big guy. He was nice. I said a few things to him, like, are you going to play more? And he's like, yeah, I hope so, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, good, you should. You're a good player. So, you know what I mean? I saw him get his hat trick in the first period against the Capitals. So Mick Vukota I always liked. So it's just funny, I happened to mention that Mick Vukota was the only guy playing out there, and he's a goon. And so I go to Clark Gillies, and I'm like, this is the best part of the story. I'm like, you know, they were down 3-0 before, and they came back, and they won the series. Clark Gillies looks at me, doesn't skip a beat, and he goes, I know! I was on that team! Woo! Oh man, what a bird! because you're always talking sports, but you never actually think the guy could say, you know, I was on that team. So they come back against the Penguins, and they didn't win the cup. Unlike the Kings, the Los Angeles Kings, baby, down 3-0 when I worked my magic and they won the Stanley Cup. So then I'm talking to Clark Gillies. I'm like, oh, you know, what was that like to be on this team and everything? And dude, I ended up going back and forth a few times because the show was kind of slow because, you know, the parking was pretty bad there just to go to a hockey game, an Islanders-Rangers game, you know what I mean? It's like a nightmare. So I got to talk to Clark Gillies for like an hour. I talked to Clark Gillies for like an hour. The Islanders actually got swept. They lost like 5-2. They had Hextall in that. And I think the Rangers had Healy on the team. And Healy had like that amazing run in the '93 playoffs. So it's like, I'm talking to Clark Gillies, I'm just talking to Clark Gillies. Clark Gillies is like the coolest guy. You can tell he's big and tough, because like, I was around this guy. When you're around someone that's tough, you can just tell they're tough, and you're like, wow, man, this guy was tough. So, you know what I mean, it was just so cool. I got to talk to and hang out with Clark Gillies for, it must have been at least an hour, because it was pretty cool, you know, so like I could go over there, nothing's around, no one's really there, and I'm just hanging out with him. Then at one point I go to the bar, and I don't even know who the guy is. He buys me like 2 screwdrivers, and you know, in '94, I'm not 18 yet, you know what I mean, I graduated high school in '94, so you can do the math on that one. So it's like, I'm in like this bar inside the Coliseum, and you know the drinks there are like $5-6 at least. I think he bought me 2 screwdrivers. So I'm in there, I'm just drinking, I'm just hanging out and stuff, and we're talking. I don't even know who the guy is. He could have been a hockey player, he could have been a Hall of Famer, could have been anybody. But out of all the people I met, you know, Sabu, Terry Brunk, you could RSS 005 when I met him, and I slapped smack Sandman on the back. Like, he's the guy I most wanted to meet. But out of like all the people I met doing these shows, Clark Gillies was probably the coolest. You know, I knew Steve Stern. He did Zen Intergalactic Ninja. I was actually in talks to maybe write a comic for him. That would have been cool. I remember when he did the Jay Lee cover, he's like, I can't give you the chromium card. I'm like, don't worry, because I knew the card market was going to drop, because I used to collect cards. But yeah, Chaos Comics, they gave me an Evil Ernie pin that was going for like $10. They gave me like Lady Death #2 signed. I remember one guy was a black guy, I think. I thought they were both black guys. That was Chaos Comics. They were pretty cool, and one of the guys I think I knew died of cancer. So, you know what I mean? So it's really cool to get to do the shows, you know, because you figure I'm at that age. But I really regret that I was too scared to talk to Cactus Jack Mankind. Because I was just setting up. I could have talked to him. It wasn't even at the show yet. But man, I was just standing there. I could have touched him, and he was just so intimidating, so big. And it was just like when he went through that ECW thing, where he took like all the chair shots. He took chair shot after chair shot after chair shot after chair shot after chair shot. So, you know, it's funny, Clark Gillies was actually like captain of the New York Islanders at one point, and he didn't really like it. He became like the tough guy. He was like one of the toughest guys ever to play, and I mean, you know, just to meet him, he was like one of the nicest guys. I mean, Clark Gillies is a class act. It's not like sports today where they want to tell you they don't want you as a fan. They don't want... This Clark Gillies went out of his way to just be a good guy. You know, when I explained that, I was nervous, but it's funny. My cousin, he wanted me to get the puck signed for like his nephews, Danny and Little Richie. So Danny and Richie. So then I had to go back with like another puck, and then I had him do it with like the Danny and the Richie ones. But by then, me and Clark Gillies were pretty friendly, you know what I mean? So Clark Gillies didn't mind doing that for me. So it's like, but it's just so funny, because like when he was talking to me, I'm like, can you just sign this? And then he got me back when I said, you know, they were down 3-0 before, and he's like, I know. I was on that team, and it was just so great. Because, I mean, he stunned me. I was speechless. I think I, like, blacked out, but I recovered. Because I'm like, oh, man, what was it like to be on that team? And, you know, Al Arbour's the greatest coach ever. Al Arbour's the greatest hockey coach ever to live. Al Arbour, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. He was the best coach. He took them on that winning streak to go to the playoffs when they had no chance. And, you know, it let me have a lot more time with Clark Gillies. That was probably a Comic-Con where you had to actually go in to do that. I did Nassau Coliseum once or twice, and then I did Jacob Javits Center in New York. That was a really big show. So I think I saw Vukota as either Jacob Javits Center or probably Coliseum show. So I don't think he'd do one of the smaller Marriott shows or local shows. But anyways, thanks for listening, and if you ever get a chance to meet Clark Gillies, I suggest you do, because he's a great guy and a class act. And there you can see Clark Gillies.